Would you voluntarily step into a floating wooden coffin never to return? The year is 1720. You are on the muddy banks of Porto Feliz. The air weighs on your shoulders. It is a dense and hot humidity. You are not about to make a simple commercial trip. You are about to begin a 5-month siege. Individual space is a cruel illusion. You're squeezed inside a gigantic canoe. It is a hollowed-out peroba log. The smell of others' sweat already invades your nostrils. The scorching sun punishes your unprotected skin. There is no shade, there is no retreat. You row, you bleed. The Tiete River winds before you like a dark vein. Your hands grip the rustic wooden oar. Blisters begin to form in a few hours. They burst quickly. The pain is sharp. You keep rowing. 12 hours a day, every day. The heat reaches 40 degrees at the peak of noon. Sweat trickles down your burning eyes. The river water splashes on your exhausted face. It has a metallic and rotten taste. You know that the gold of Cuiabá is the ultimate prize, but greed exacts an immediate biological toll. Your body is the true laboratory of this tragedy. Immunity does not exist in this green hell. Mosquitoes form black clouds around the vessel. They land on your sweaty neck. The sting is almost imperceptible, but the poison is already circulating in your veins. Malaria waits silently in the darkness of your body. It will destroy your liver mercilessly. Your muscles scream for rest. Rest never comes. The canoe moves slowly against the invisible current. Each oar stroke is a desperate prayer. The silence of the jungle is deafening. Fear paralyzes your spine. You observe the other men around you, pale faces, sunken eyes, empty souls. Everyone shares the same mute terror. The journey has only just begun. The worst is still hidden in the murky waters. Do you think disease will be your greatest enemy in this aquatic labyrinth? The real nightmare does not come from inside your body, but from the shadows that glide silently along the banks. Why do you submit to this liquid purgatory? The answer glows in the darkness of your feverish mind. Gold. The newly discovered mines of Cuiabá whisper promises of infinite wealth. But the geography between São Paulo and Mato Grosso is a colossal monster. You must tame 3,000 kilometers of treacherous rivers. The route requires navigating the Tietê, descending the imposing Paraná River, and ascending the Pardo. Then you will face the waters of the Taquari, Paraguay, and São Lourenço. It is a labyrinth of muddy waters and deadly currents. The physics of these rivers is your greatest declared enemy. Violent rapids roar like hungry beasts. The dreaded falls and waterfalls relentlessly block your path. The water does not yield. You are forced to disembark on the slippery banks. The portage is your new personal hell. You need to drag the canoe across dry land. It is tons of solid wood, cargo, and supplies. The fiber rope tears the flesh of your hands. The weight slowly crushes your vertebrae. The back pain is excruciating. You push the vessel over rolling logs in the middle of the mud. The risk of a fatal landslide is constant. One minimal error and the canoe will crush your bones. There are no doctors in this jungle. A broken leg is a slow death sentence, and the forest watches your every move. Jaguars lurk in the dense shadows of the riparian forest. Their yellow eyes glow in the twilight. The low roar makes your blood freeze instantly. You are completely exposed and vulnerable. The stifling heat turns the air into a thick vapor. The humidity rots your clothes on your own body. The smell of moldy leather and dried meat spoils your appetite, but you must eat to keep pushing. Brute force is the only valid currency here. You survive the waterfalls and the crushing weight of the wood. But as you drag your calloused feet through the dark mud, something tiny and devastating has already begun to devour you from the bottom up. The story of Antonio, a 19-year-old from São Paulo, echoes in your exhausted mind. He had been rowing beside you for 3 weeks. Antonio dreamed of buying his mother's freedom with the gold from Cuiabá, but the river has no mercy for dreams. His feet, in constant contact with contaminated water and the damp soil of the camps, were silently invaded. The Tunga penetrans, the infamous Chigo flea, found soft flesh. In a few days, young Antonio's feet became purulent and unrecognizable masses. Gangrene climbed up his left leg like a black shadow. You held his shoulders while the canoe captain performed the rudimentary amputation. It was done with a dull, incandescent machete. Antonio's screams still haunt your sleepless nights. He did not survive the shock and bled to death. Now you look at your own feet, sunk in the fetid mud. The terror is absolute. The initial itching has already started between your toes. You try to ignore the latent pain. Daily life in the monsoon is a slow biological degradation. Extreme hunger forces you into desperate acts. Supplies spoil quickly in the tropical heat. You chew pieces of leather from your own old shoes. The taste is of ashes and despair. It is the only way to trick an empty stomach. Thirst is an uninterrupted torture under the 40-degree sun. You are forced to drink the brown water from the river. It is fetid, hot, and full of invisible parasites. Dysentery is the next stage of your ordeal. Your insides twist in violent spasms. You lose fluids faster than you can replace them. Weakness takes over every muscle fiber. The smell of feces and sweat permeates the wood of the canoe. The environment is one of continuous, pure post-traumatic stress. You do not sleep, you just collapse from exhaustion. Death by disease seems inevitable and almost comforting. However, as you vomit the rotten water on the banks of the Paiaguá River, an agile and silent shadow cuts the surface, proving that human nature is infinitely more cruel than any bacteria. You are just a disposable gear in this colossal machine of ambition. The monsoons are gigantic and relentless military expeditions. Hundreds of canoes form a wooden serpent tearing through the river. The organization is rigid, hierarchical, and ruthless. The Captain Major holds absolute power over your life. His word is the ultimate and unquestionable law. You obey blindly or are abandoned on the banks to die alone. Physical punishments are applied with exemplary cruelty. The whip cracks in the hot air to maintain the rhythm of the oars. The noise echoes through the river valley relentlessly. Internal tensions boil under the scorching sun. Desperate, sick, and hungry men are walking time bombs. Food thefts result in summary executions at the night camp. Paranoia infects everyone. You don't trust the man rowing behind you. You sleep with your hand on the handle of your rusty knife. Geographical isolation amplifies human barbarity. Civilization was left months away in the past. Here, only raw and naked force guarantees the next dawn. Heavy and slow convoys are easy and predictable targets. The fleet advances with the subtlety of a wounded elephant. The noise of the oars and the shouts of the men announce your arrival miles away. You are a noisy invader in a hostile and ancient territory. The false sense of security of the large group is a deadly psychological trap. The captain orders absolute silence as they pass through the narrows. The air suddenly becomes icy, despite the sun overhead. The tension makes your muscles lock up painfully. You squint, trying to penetrate the dense wall of vegetation along the shore. The river narrows dangerously in front of you. The calm waters mirror the blue sky with illusory perfection. A funereal and unnatural silence takes over the jungle around you. The birds stop singing abruptly. You hold your breath while cold sweat runs down your neck, unaware that the true owners of these waters have already decided your brutal fate. The attack is not a battle, it is a tactical massacre. Horror emerges from the shadows with supernatural speed. The Paiaguá Indians, the true absolute masters of the rivers, reveal themselves. They do not use European war tactics. They use the water itself as a lethal and silent weapon. Their light, shallow canoes glide over the river like leaves in the wind. They are invisible until the final, fatal second. In the blink of an eye, dozens of agile vessels surround your heavy and stupid canoe. The siege is perfect, mathematical, and flawless. You try to raise your heavy, rusted musket. Your hands, trembling from malaria, do not respond to commands. Before you can take aim, the sky darkens with a cloud of death. Arrows cut through the hot air with a terrifying hiss. The man in front of you takes a dry hit to the neck. His warm blood splatters directly onto your paralyzed face. He falls into the muddy water without making a single sound. The arrow tips are bathed in devastating botanical poisons. A mere scratch on your skin guarantees an agonizing death. You throw yourself to the bottom of the canoe, crushing your face against the dirty wood. Collective panic flips the neighboring vessel in seconds. Desperate men struggle in the dark, deep water. The Paiaguá warriors approach with surgical and ruthless precision. They execute survivors in the water with quick blows of the borduna. The sound of cracking skulls echoes through the riverbed. Intense red dominates the foam of the rapids. You are trapped in this floating slaughterhouse under the relentless sun. Fear tears your sanity into irreparable pieces. Your breathing is short, gasping, and painful. You pretend to be dead among the corpses of your rowing companions. Their blood soaks your torn clothes. Death breathes inches from your ear. But the real curse of this river is not the arrow that kills instantly, but the torment of surviving to remember. You survived the tactical massacre, tropical diseases, and extreme hunger. After 5 long months of uninterrupted agony, the dusty banks of Cuiabá finally emerge on the hazy horizon. But you are no longer the same human being who left Porto Feliz with innocent hopes. Your body is irremediably broken, deformed, and consumed by tropical fever. Malaria has left deep and incurable marks on your liver and your fractured soul. Your feet, mutilated by infections, can barely support your own weakened weight. You disembark in the promised land of gold, walking like a hollow spectre. The raw gold shines in the prospector's pans under the light of the setting sun. The wealth is real, tangible, and abundant before your hollow eyes. But the sight of the yellow nuggets brings no relief or joy to your heart. The metallic gleam is the exact color of bile, botanical poison, and blood spilled in the Paraguay River. The monsoons forged the violent occupation of the Brazilian Midwest with an incalculable and dark human cost. Thousands of anonymous skeletons rest eternally in the dark and silent mud of these relentless rivers. You realize with bitterness that the true tax was not paid to the distant Portuguese crown. The ultimate toll was collected by wild nature itself in flesh, sweat, tears, and sanity. Your precious youth was drowned forever in the murky and violent waters of the Tiete River. The gold you hold in your trembling hands is cold and completely lifeless. It will never buy back the fundamental pieces of yourself that were lost along the way. Cruel history will erase your name, your indescribable pain, and your screams of despair. You are just a lonely ghost, wandering the forgotten margins of a colossal empire built on piles of corpses. The river of agony will continue to flow silently forever, devouring the memories of those who dared to challenge its primordial fury. Subscribe to this channel if you have the courage to face the forgotten abysses of our past. Share this account before history's murky waters drown our memory forever.